Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Fit and Flourishing podcast. In today's episode, we are talking about not letting people live rent-free in your head. I'm going to explain to you what this means and what to do about it. So, let me give you an example of letting people live rent-free in your head. You go to work, you go to a meeting, you've been working super hard on this project, and one of your coworkers makes a snide comment about your work. So you leave your office and you start thinking about it for days and days and days. Thinking about what you should have said back, thinking about what she meant by that. Did everybody else think that I was going to? Blah, 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 blah. And the chances are that before you make decisions, you also think about what other people are going to say about you. And you also think about what bad things might happen. That is called letting people live rent-free in your head. You are making decisions based on whether or not someone else is going to like it, what someone else is going to think about it, what someone else is going to do about it, what someone else might say about it, instead of what you know to be right and true. Another example of this, and this is kind of an interesting example, but I'm going to say it anyway. I was just talking to my dad about this. In certain communities, and this part of this is like public school education, is we are really trained as Black people to think that our power and that our advancement will come from white people. And I have come to realize that a lot of people let the idea of white people live rent-free in their head, meaning they're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't try this because what if there's white people there and they don't accept me? Or what if I do this and some other, person does this, that, or the third, and they hinder me from making progress. And so pretty soon you've got yourself in a state of freeze because you're worried about what if someone is racist? What if someone doesn't like me? What if they don't choose me? And that's really a terrible, terrible way to live. So what are we going to do instead? First of all, I want to acknowledge that it took me a long time to make decisions based on what was right and not what I thought other people would say or do in response to me. Now, ironically, doing the right thing often leads to, not always, but often leads to a positive outcome. Sometimes doing the right thing is also the hard thing, and people will be quite contrarian and quite opposing to your actions. But that's neither here nor there. When you're doing the right thing, it doesn't matter because it's the right thing. So I want to acknowledge that that's difficult, and it was difficult for me. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I just didn't care. I just didn't care what people thought. I just didn't care if people were going to be upset about it. I had to do it because it was the right thing to do. I will explain this to you from a business perspective. One of the reasons why I did not raise my prices for a really, really long time was because I didn't want people to think that I was greedy. So instead, I let people walk all over me proverbially with their money. Because when people are paying for something, but they're not paying a high price, they don't tend to value it. They don't tend to value your services. And so I allowed myself to be abused because I was letting the thoughts and opinions of other people live rent-free in my head. I was thinking, oh, well, I don't want them to think that I've gotten greedy. I don't want them to think that I think I'm, worth all of this. I don't want them to feel like they're being overcharged. But the reality is I was just charging them for what I was worth. And so we have to get to a point, I had to get to a point where I was okay with whatever the outcome was, as long as it was the right thing to do. Since this is a health and fitness channel, let me explain to you this from a health and fitness perspective. Some of you guys have tried diet after diet after diet, exercise plan after exercise plan after exercise plan. You have failed and failed and failed and failed. And you still want to try. But you're worried because other people's opinions are living rent-free in your head. Oh, there you go again. The last time it didn't work, you're just meant to be thick forever. We're not supposed to exercise like that. You're trying to eat this kind of food. You don't think you're not healthy. You're just blah, 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 blah. So you're letting other people's opinions live rent free in your head, and it's stopping you from doing what the right thing is. If this sounds like you, I want to encourage you to stop doing that. How do you stop doing that? Instead of asking, what are other people going to think? You're going to ask, is this the right thing to do? What are the consequences if I do this? Not what other people think, but what are the genuine consequences if I do this? And then you need to pray about it. And that's it. You don't need to ask thousands of people's opinions. You don't need to run around and make sure that everybody feels comfortable with what you're doing, because chances are whenever you're doing something that is actually good for you, something that is actually going to level you up, a lot of times people are going to dissent because they are not ready, and your level of growth is going to be intimidating to them. And so sometimes it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea to ask people, and particularly people who are not where you want to be, what you should do, and then to allow their thoughts and opinions to be running and swirling around in your thought process. You always want to be wise in where you're getting your opinions from. It's not going to be from people who are not quite where you want to be. So let's stop letting other people live rent-free in your head. What I like to think about is the energy that it takes, you guys. Oh my gosh, it is so draining to constantly be thinking about what someone said and what they meant by that, and oh no, do the thing. And you know what I think about now is I think about, gosh, if I spent that energy working out, I'd be better off. If I spent that energy creating something, I'd be better off. And in fact, now, if my mind starts to do that, I immediately go into creativity mode. I could be making something that's making me money right now. I could be using this energy to make something that is just beautiful. I could be knitting. I could be painting. But instead, I'm using that energy to ruminate on someone else's thoughts and opinions. That is a waste of your life. Do not waste your life thinking about what other people are thinking about you. They're running the show. And the only person who should be running the show is God. God is running the show. Not your mama, your daddy, your sister, your uncle, your cousin, unless of course you still live under your parents' roof and you are under the age of 18, different story. But if you're an adult, your coworker, some random lady across the street, your neighbor, they should not be running the show. They should not be sucking up your precious energy because you are worried about what they are going to think. A lot of us have not done the thing that we're meant to do because we're very concerned that someone else might not like it. And then we sit there and we ruminate and we ruminate and we think about it and we think about it and we analyze it. And it's just sucking precious time away from us. So let's commit to not letting people live rent-free in your head. All right, you guys, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe and leave a review. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.